Hi everyone, another nighttime edition of my video blog, my vlog here this evening. I really should do this in the day sometime where you can look out those windows behind me and see the tree that dominates the lookout there. Its spindly branches in winter let me see all up and down the street, but in summer the leaves come out and it's like this great green wall in front of me, very pretty. What I'm going to talk about is a little bit about how there are all sorts of ways now of getting your books out to people. There's the classic hard copy that you can order online or get down to your favorite bookstore or check out from a library. But as I'm sure all of you know, there are e-books and ways of downloading it even online, a little different than an e-book. And I'm toying with the idea of putting out one of my books, really the first novel I wrote, that I feel good about, in another way of serializing it online, getting people to subscribe to reading it a few chapters at a time, and thinking maybe I can attract readers that way. It's a book set in the days of ancient Rome, and ancient Rome has fascinated me since I was a little kid. Come to think of it, it started fascinating me right about the time I thought I wanted to become a writer back in 4th grade. Maybe the two interests go together somehow. And what I'm going to do is just read the prologue, and that'll give you a little taste of what the book is like. Its main character is a young man, hardly a man at all, he's only 19, called Marcus Publius, comes from a noble family. And because he's a noble, he's been given command of a body of troops as Caesar's army is about to make an amphibious landing on an unknown and almost mythical shore. So here we are, the prologue. With Caesar's legions, 55 BC. While Marcus slept, the stars had shifted in the sky and the moon had swung from one horizon to the other. To the east, the sky glowed bronze in front of the dawn, casting a faint light on the white cliffs that lay less than a mile off port, the ship running parallel to them. He had awakened from a dream of home. Home. He had left it behind so long ago that it seemed less real now than even the fabled isle towards which he sailed. Since leaving the family villa on the sacred hilltop near Ravenna, he had passed his 19th birthday in the wilds of Gaul, had undertaken epic journeys and secret missions and fought in terrifying battles. And he had been haunted by the still unexplained vision of the beautiful sorceress, whose face had repeatedly appeared to him on the surface of dark ponds or the bottom of dark wells. Off the bow, the red lantern of Caesar's flagship swung in a short arc as the ship rolled in the swell. Marcus put on his helmet and wandered among the mostly silent soldiers. He found one of his centurions, a man named Capito, near the bow, leaning against the rail. The soldier cocked his chin as Marcus approached, telling him he should look toward shore. The young nobleman peered through the semi-darkness toward the waves breaking against the cliffs. "Look hard, sir. No, not at the beach. Up at the top." Marcus's gaze shifted toward the crest of the chalk cliffs just coming visible as the sun rose, and he felt his breath catch. Stretching along the top of the bluffs was a long, low mass, which in the dim light might have been simply a long line of scrub trees or brush, except that it moved. Crawling along the cliff top, its slow progress punctuated by larger, faster-moving figures, chariots, running beside a column of hundreds, no, thousands, of men on foot. Among them rode scores of horsemen advancing steadily east, tracking the Roman fleet. Ahead of them, a mile or two, up the gently curving coastline, the cliffs ended in a wide beach, perfectly suited for a landing. Marcus ordered a legionary to tell the other centurion under his command, Clodius Calvinus, to report. The veteran soldier made his way across the deck to Marcus and Capito. "Yes, sir?" "Form up your men," Marcus said to both centurions, finding it hard to speak in a normal tone. He was barely half their age and felt it keenly, but as a member of a noble family, he outranked anyone without an aristocratic title. "They should have their javelins in hand," Marcus continued. Tell them to leave their gear on the deck. Take nothing but weapons and shields. Are we going to try to land, sir? Claudius asked, utterly calm. Yes, I think so. Walking along the deck, the two centurions shouted at their men to fall in. By the time they were all on their feet, the fleet had run past the end of the high bluffs. Marcus wiped the sweat from his palms. Claudius and Capito reappeared at Marcus's side. The men are formed up, sir, Capito said. As Marcus tried to think of any further order he needed to give, Claudius pointed to something over the young man's shoulder. What's that, sir? Marcus turned to see a pennant shooting up the mast of Caesar's flagship. The captain of Marcus's ship gave a quick shout, and the helmsman shoved the rudder hard to port. The legionaries lurched to one side, grabbing at the railing as the boat came quickly around. Up and down the line of the fleet, every ship had changed course 90 degrees. No longer holding the uneven line they had kept for hours, they were now running parallel to each other, heading directly for shore. The enemy foot soldiers, seeing the changing course, broke into a run, spreading out along the beach. Scores of chariots dashed forward, their drivers snapping whips over their galloping horses. Warriors stood behind them on the chariot platform, waving their spears. Marcus felt unprepared for the fight about to begin. Tell the men, he coughed, struggling to get the words out of his parched throat. Tell the men to be ready to jump onto the beach as soon as the boats run ashore. Marcus told his centurions. Good luck. Jupiter Invictus and Mars go with. His voice failed him. Capito and Claudius nodded and began shouting orders to the men, though their voices too sounded hoarse and unnatural. On the beaches, the masses of barbarians grew thicker as the infantry caught up to the horsemen. Chariots raced along the water's edge, drivers and warriors shouting at the oncoming ships, daring the Romans to land. Standing on deck, Marcus rested a hand on his sword, closed his eyes, sent up a quick prayer to Mars for courage and Venus for protection. He took a deep breath, opened his eyes. He was ready. 100 paces from shore. He could see the beach clearly now, not sandy but pebbly. Footing will be treacherous, he thought. The iron-rimmed wheels of the enemy chariots made a terrific noise as they dashed up and down the stony beach. 50 paces. A bit of saliva came into his mouth. Marcus turned to shout an encouraging word to his men. A grinding roar cut off his words as the boat shuddered to a halt, pitching scores of men headfirst onto the deck. Marcus grabbed at the railing to keep from falling. He looked over the side, braced himself to leap ashore. What he found shocked him to his soul. Instead of the pebbled beach, he saw only water. The transport had run aground 40 paces from shore. The legionaries had recovered their footing and stood motionless, many of them looking uneasily at the barbarians massed on the beach, waiting for the Romans to come off their ships. The two centurions looked to Marcus for an order. Marcus drew his sword and waved it at the ship's captain. "Damn it, bring the boat into shore!" The captain held out his hands in a helpless gesture. Furious, Marcus made for the stern. "Bring this boat up. We can't jump off from here." "We've hit bottom," the captain screamed back. "I can't get any closer. Get off my ship." Marcus looked up and down the beach. The other transports had all run aground in a ragged line 30, 50, 70 paces from the beach. Caesar's flagship, only a short distance from Marcus's, had also run aground, its army officers running up and down the decks, mirroring Marcus's own pleadings with the ship's captain. On the beaches, enemy foot soldiers, sensing the Romans' helplessness, ran knee-deep into the water and let loose their spears. On Marcus's craft, 2 men went down, impaled by the raining missiles. Reflexively, the soldiers put their shields over their heads for protection, which had the effect of anchoring them in place, like frightened children pulling the covers over their heads. Capito and Claudius staggered towards Marcus on the tilting deck. "What do we do?" Capito asked. "Can we get them in over the sides?" Marcus said. "I don't think they'll do it." "You're their centurions. Order them to jump." Capito spoke between clenched teeth, trying to remain calm. "If we give them an order, they won't obey. They won't be soldiers anymore, sir, just a mob." A spear clanked onto the deck between them. Another hit the railing, a glancing blow, and skittered into the ranks. Marcus looked at the beach. Emboldened by the Romans' hesitancy, the enemy were wading deeper into the water, loosing their spears at close range into their immobile targets. Marcus struggled to keep control of himself. The men wouldn't attack, couldn't retreat, couldn't stay where they were as the enemy picked them off. "Look, There! Clodius's shout punctured Marcus's disordered thoughts. Marcus turned to find two warships, smaller and with shallower draft than the transports, running onto the beach, one on each side of his own ship. Within moments, the giant arrows of the Scorpion launchers were plowing into the massed enemy. The onagers and ballista bolted to the deck behind the Scorpions, kicked their loads of stone and burning pitch into the midst of the enemy. Marcus's men cheered. Astounded and unnerved by these strange weapons, the enemy warriors froze. A scorpion arrow passed through the thigh of a horseman at the water's edge, transfixing him to his mount, both of them falling in a heap. The moment had come. Marcus raised his sword into the air to order his men over the side, but he stopped himself before he gave the command. Capito was right. The response of command and obedience, built over years of training, could snap in an instant if he gave an order the men were not ready to obey. Taking a deep breath, Marcus knew he had to become not simply an officer, but a leader. The meaning of his long journey had boiled down to this moment. He snatched the sacred cohort flag from its astonished bearer, leaped onto the rail and looked down. And there she was, the face that had haunted him for months, floating before him on the surface of the water, beckoning him. For an instant, Marcus froze, but for only an instant. He knew this time he had to obey her call. "Follow me," he shouted, and not daring to think, plunged over the side. And that's where the prologue ends. I may post a couple chapters here in the coming weeks and look for subscribers. Tell me what you think of that idea. And for extra credit, anyone who thinks he knows, or she, tell me what island he thinks they're landing on. Until next week, take care. I think I'll tell you more about my fascination with the Romans then. So long.